Wait a moment.
I'm interested in this.
Farewell for now.
Yeah. Don't steal! Behold thy true form!
Go back whence you came. Trouble the soul of my mother no more.